It was one of those chilly autumn evenings when the wind whistled through the trees outside and the sound of leaves brushing against the windows echoed through the house. The warmth of the living room lights contrasted with the coolness in the air, and Sarah Mitchell was rearranging the cushions on her couch, trying to make the space more inviting. She had always been the kind of woman who found comfort in making her home cozy. After losing her husband 3 years ago, she learned that little details, like soft blankets, candles, and warm tea, brought her a sense of peace. That night, she wasn't expecting much to happen. She had just returned from work, tired but relieved to finally settle in with her teenage daughter Emily. Emily was 15, with a kind heart but a streak of independence that reminded Sarah so much of her late husband, Mark. They had been adjusting to life as a smaller family unit, but sometimes loneliness crept in unexpectedly. At around 8:30 p.m., a knock sounded at the door. Sarah frowned, not expecting company. Emily looked up from her math homework and said, "Who could that be this late?" Sarah walked to the door, her heart beating a little faster than usual. Opening it, she was surprised to see a familiar face, her younger brother's best friend from high school, Daniel Harris. Daniel looked different than she remembered. He was older now, probably in his mid-30s, with tired eyes and an expression that told a story even before he spoke. He shifted uncomfortably on the porch and said, "Hey, Sarah. I'm sorry for showing up unannounced, but I didn't know where else to go." Sarah immediately noticed the duffel bag slung over his shoulder. Her instincts kicked in, and she moved aside to let him in. "Come in, Daniel. It's freezing out there." He stepped into the warmth of the house, clearly grateful. Emily perked up at the sight of him, remembering him vaguely from family gatherings years ago. "Hey, I remember you," she said with a small smile. Daniel chuckled softly. "Yeah, you were just a little kid the last time I saw you." Once everyone was seated, Sarah finally asked the question that had been sitting heavy in the air. "Daniel, what's going on?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's been a rough few months. I lost my job 2 weeks ago, and then my landlord gave me notice. I've been trying to find a place to stay, but nothing's working out. Tonight, I had nowhere to go. I thought of you because, well, you were always kind to me, and this house felt like home back when I used to visit with your brother." Sarah's heart ached hearing his words. She knew what it felt like to lose stability and to face nights that felt impossible to get through. She glanced at the couch she had just arranged with cushions and blankets. "Daniel, you can sleep here tonight. It's not much, but the couch is comfortable enough. You'll at least have a roof over your head." His eyes softened, and for the first time since he stepped inside, he smiled. "Thank you, Sarah. Really. I don't know what I would have done tonight without this." That night, Sarah made tea while Emily chatted with Daniel, asking about his life and listening attentively as he described his struggles. There was something about having another person in the house that filled a quiet space Sarah hadn't realized had become so heavy. By the time they all said goodnight, the house felt warmer in more ways than one. The next morning, Sarah expected Daniel to be gone early, but instead, she found him in the kitchen making scrambled eggs with Emily, who was laughing about how he kept dropping eggshells into the bowl. Sarah stood quietly for a moment, watching them, her heart touched by the unexpected joy that had entered her home. Over the next few days, Daniel stayed on the couch. Sarah wasn't sure how long he planned to stay, but she didn't ask. She noticed little things about him, how he always offered to help with chores, how he was gentle when Emily asked for help with her homework, and how he spoke with honesty about his hardships without self-pity. Slowly, his presence began to feel less like a burden and more like a blessing. One evening, Sarah came home late after a long day at the office. She walked into the living room to find Emily and Daniel building a puzzle on the coffee table, laughing as they struggled to fit the right pieces together. The sight made Sarah smile. Emily hadn't laughed like that in a long time, not since Mark passed away. Something about Daniel's presence was helping her heal in ways Sarah hadn't been able to on her own. Later that night, as Sarah brought Daniel a blanket, he looked at her and said, "I don't know how to thank you, Sarah. You didn't have to let me stay here, but you did. You've given me more than a couch. You've given me hope." Those words stayed with her. She realized that sometimes the smallest gestures could change someone's life. Letting him sleep on her couch had seemed like such a simple act of kindness, but it had opened the door to something greater. It wasn't just about giving him shelter, it was about giving him a sense of belonging when he had none. As the weeks passed, Daniel managed to find part-time work at a local auto shop. He still came back to the couch every night, and although Sarah offered her support, she noticed how determined he was to stand on his own feet again. His resilience inspired her, reminding her of the strength she had found when life had knocked her down. Emily grew closer to Daniel, often asking him for advice or listening to his stories. He became like an older brother to her, someone who filled a gap she hadn't known was there. For Sarah, watching the bond form between them was one of the most heartwarming experiences of her life. Eventually, Daniel saved enough to rent a small apartment across town. The day he moved out, Sarah and Emily helped him carry boxes, and though it was bittersweet, they all knew this wasn't goodbye. He had become family, and family didn't end just because someone lived somewhere else. A few months later, on Christmas Eve, Sarah opened her door to find Daniel standing there with a basket of cookies and a smile. "I couldn't let the holiday go by without spending it with the people who gave me a second chance," he said warmly. That night, as they sat around the tree, laughing and sharing stories, Sarah realized that letting Daniel sleep on her couch had changed all of their lives in ways she never could have imagined. What started as a simple act of kindness turned into a lifelong bond of friendship, love, and healing. And in the quiet moments of that holiday night, Sarah understood that sometimes, when we open our doors to others, we also open our hearts to the possibility of joy returning in the most unexpected ways.